Hi, it's Leo from Made by Marley. Welcome back to our channel. Today I'm going to be taking just a simple piece of furniture and I'm going to be stamping it and making it look like it's got that hand painted feel. So if you're interested in creating something like this, something quite modern and fresh, then stay tuned, follow along while I do it. Okay, so this is the piece. It's cute. It's got a little bit of a bow front. I'm going to take the handles off only because it's going to be easier to work with. It's got some nice details. Got a few chips and dings in it. It's going to need a bit more sort of kind of texture around the edges. But apart from that, yeah, it's a nice little piece. Today's video, sorry, that was me thinking there. Today's video is all about stamping. I've done a Molds 101 video. I've done many pieces that have got stamping on it, but today I'm going to do a real breakdown on stamping. And some of the colours, well, the sort of main colour choice might even surprise you because I think I'm going to do it black. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to give this a good once over. Mark's going to remove the handles for me, and then I find with stamping, and if you're looking for an all over pattern, keep it as is. It's easier undoubtedly to remove your drawers, set them up and stamp on them, but then you have to try and fit the rest of the flower in, and it's probably easier first time round to just keep it all together as a whole, so that we can stamp it as a whole as opposed to just do one drawer. We're not doing a sort of one-time deal. We're doing a across the piece deal. So that's what we're going to do. So why not take the handles off it? I'm going to give it a clean. I'm going to work out, oh no, it does fit. I thought the drawer didn't fit. And then we'll get all set up here. This stamp I'm going to be using today is the penny stamp. There's loads of different stamps you can buy out there, and I have a lot of different stamps, but one of my most favourite stamp to use is the penny stamp. The penny stamp has been made to be paintable, so there's not a whole load of shading on it. Some stamps just have a whole load of shading, and then if that's the case, you're better doing the stamp it, paint it, stamp over the top of it again, and you're going to get the detail you want. Where these lovely big paintable, the penny stamps, and they're all like this. This one's had a lot of stays on ink on it. They're all like this. These are easily paintable in a bowl. So we'll do that. We might do some we'll go back over the top of, some we won't. So we'll kind of work between the two. But I've got all or most of the big penny heads out, and I've just got, because I separate all my stamps up, I've just got a random box of leaves, and we'll see what leaves, I know which leaves belong to what. For example, I know that's a leaf from the sunflower collection. I'll have a look and get the leaves out, and we'll maybe even put some other leaves in it to make this all work. But first things first, handles removed. Okay, so the first thing we're going to talk about is composition. When you're stamping, you can do many different ways to use your stamp, and maybe the Stamping 101 video maybe it'd been easier if I decided to do it in an easier way. You can paint your piece completely first and then stamp. But what I'm going to be doing is something different today. I am going to be stamping and painting my detail first and then putting my paint around it. Why am I doing that when you could get a much nicer, smoother finish by doing it the other way? I'm doing it the way I'm choosing to do it because I want more of an art finish, and I want to use, although my background is going to be black, I want to use different colours in my black background to frame my artwork. So you have a choice now at this point in time. You've bought your stamps, you've sanded your stamps to season them, and if you go back to any of my other videos, basically what you do when you get your stamps, any stamps, is it comes on a sheet, you sand them this way, and this way. What this does is, seasoning your stamps gives your plastic a little bit more tooth on a surface. That's why you do that. So you've got your stamps, you've seasoned your stamps, you're ready to go. Option one, paint your piece solidly, 2 coats first of all. That's your option, and then proceed like I'm going to do. Or you can do it this way if you're wanting to make your stamps, because when I go round it, I'm not going to be incredibly careful about edges. I'm going to try and make it, because I can come back and I can make these edges my own again, which makes it have a little bit more of an arty flow than a stampy flow. Now, sometimes there's a real need to have that crisp stamp, and as I said to you before, the stamp it, paint it, stamp it again look, or there's the need to have it look like it was never stamped in the first place. So this is what I'm trying to achieve here. We'll see if we can pull it off. I have done it before, and I'll get Martin to drop, which way am I pointing, up here or up here? I'll get Martin to drop a link. I haven't done a look like this for years, at least 2.5 years. What I'm going to show you now, and I've done a piece, and it was very, 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 very pale. This time round, it's going to be very, very, very bright. And if I tell the truth about the pale piece, actually it was very dark to begin with, and I went a little bit gung-ho with the white wax. Ask me how I know. Didn't put any clear wax on it first, covered it in white wax, and it ended up being really pale. So everybody has to learn. So a couple of years ago, I did a piece, and I think that I was never truly, although it sold really well, I was never truly happy, because I knew the beautiful colours and the shading and everything that had been underneath that had been hidden with the white wax. So I think this is a good video to show you the way to do it correctly, I think is what I'm trying to say. So composition, how are you going to put these on? You can either start big at the bottom and get sort of smaller and think about how it's going to move. There's no point going do. That's not going to work. You have to have something that when you stand back, it all works. So my natural sort of instinct is always to go bigger and let it weave up. But today, no. Today I'm going to be doing it this way. Now we've also got another problem, because I don't have a white stamping ink, but I have a green one. So I've got this sort of shade of green that I'm going to stamp it with first. All that's going to do is give me my lines, hopefully, and it's the lightest colour shade I've got over there. It's going to give me enough lines to work around. Now, why did I pick such a complicated piece, and why am I telling you not to lift your drawers out? It's because I want to be able to show you how to work over these little edges, how to make it work. So I think what I'm going to do, because I can work my composition off on the hoof, is I'm just going to start with this big one, and I'm trying to work out where it's going to be. Now, it's a good time to talk about mounts. Some of my stamps, and I bet you none of my leaves have it on. I'm sorry, I'm just going to show you something, because some of my stamps are like this. They're floppy, because I've used them for things like this that I have to bend and get round. Some of my stamps look like this. It's still on the backing. This IOD from La Campagne. Oh, we've been through this before. It doesn't matter. This stamp is from that set, and it is on the hard plastic. Why have I kept it on there? Because at that point in time, I was probably stamping a piece, and I've maybe never used it since, which was a solid flat piece. Boom. It depends what you want to do. If you're going to go around these edges, you can't make it bend if it's on these. So I've always been a kind of freestyle sort of gal. Some are on plastic. Letters. Do yourself a favour. If you buy any typeset, keep them on here. Saves you haven't used tacky spray, because then what I have to do is if you do want to put it back on a mount and it just isn't sticking, is just get some tacky spray that you use to hold up stencils. Cut a piece of this out, a piece of Mylar, and just stick it on with tacky spray, and you've reset it back to what you need it to do. And there, if I rattle through my stamps, you'd see some that I've actually masking taped to the back. Whatever works for you. But backing, there's a time and a place for it. For this look, I've got all these lips to go over. And maybe for your first stamping piece, you maybe go, maybe I shouldn't. But there's no reason why you shouldn't. You just have to go, just follow what I'm going to show you next. So I've got my green. Now, I tell you the same thing all of the time repeatedly, and I've obviously didn't set up, and I'll just tip those out of here just so I can give you a surface. Yeah, just tipping my stamps on the floor while I get you a hard surface. So I usually use an old chopping board to do this. So here's my stamp. I use StazOn ink. You can use IOD ink. You can use whatever ink you want to use. I like StazOn ink. I'm not told to, I'm not affiliated with StazOn. I just like them. So the best way I find is not to rub it. You can do that, but I think you're going to get it more juicy with your banging. If you want it just lightly, you can do that over stamps, but I think the more juicy, because I'm going to have to be able to see around this green on this dark background. So maybe if this is your first time, I would invest on a white ink, and then you can see exactly where you're going. But, you know, I'm not about making it easy for myself. So I think I've made sure that I've covered all of my edges. There. Now, most of this is going to get painted in. So I'm not too concerned about it. I'm hoping to put this, I want it to be here. And I think at some point in time you have to commit. Now this is where you commit, but you don't shift. So my best way of dealing with things like this is to make sure I keep a palm flat on the middle of my stamp. You can see what I'm doing. I am making sure that I touch all of the details in these little parts here where I've got where this meets here. I'm pushing into it. You're going to lose a little bit of definition in there, but you can paint all that back in. So you're just wanting your initial sort of shape. And as I said, it's going to be a little bit tricky for me because I'm using green on a dark brown. I'm just working my way around here. I'm taking my time. Taking your time works. And I'm not, Martin will tell you, I'm not a woman that likes to take my time. But I think since I'm showing you the correct way to do things, I'm not going to rush through the first one. I'm swapping my hand over now. I'm putting this hand here so that I can make sure that I'm touching all of here. I'm working on a slightly slick surface, which is another thing that's kind of working against me. I just want to actually, yeah, this is going to be perfect. See, always trust your process. What I did was to make sure that I could see whether the green was going to show up. Try to do two things and show you two things at once now was I just got my green and I went like this. And I could see that it was going to show up. So I knew that that would be enough for me to see. But there's always that little bit when you're doing it in camera where you go, is this going to be enough? But I think this is going to be fine. Now there's going to be a certain amount of shift on here. I understand and appreciate it. I'm trying to just make sure that I do under this rim here. I just want a good rim to follow. A good line to follow over that rim. Get my words right. Now, happy days. This is my big flower. Yeah? So, I've got my big flower on. Can you see that, Martin? Is it too difficult to maybe see? It's not going to be the most amazing kind of until we kind of get started. I think now, what I'm going to do with this one is I want to put some foliage in between these, quite ostentatious. So I don't want them to meet too close up. I'm just trying to work out where my next part is going to go. So again, back to the stamping, same process before. I'm pouncing it because I know that's going to make my stamp a little bit more juicy. If I didn't want too juicy a stamp, I would run over it like this. But because I need as much of this green ink, you know, my little stamp boxes were pristine, no longer. Composition, I'm thinking I want this one to go down, so, and I want leaf room there, so, oh, and it was a monumental shift there, I've got to admit that. It is my wobbly floor, Martin, yeah. It is my wobbly floor. I'm going to try and talk and tell you things at the same time. Oh, Martin says, oh dear, yeah. Sometimes Martin does, I can't even hold the conversation, let alone do two things at once. Right, where was I going to go? I've picked a smaller piece this week because if you only knew what day it was and we're supposed to have this video out by Sunday, you would be feeling the nerves like I'm feeling them right now. Why are we so far behind? Well, let me tell you, I think quite a lot of people know that my little grandson came last week, but my little grandson was born a poor wee sicky baby. He was in ICU for the first week, Martin. 5 days. Yeah, 5 days he was in there until he got to be with his mum in a different part of the hospital. But he has been very poorly and very sick, and that's put everybody here at Made by Marley in a bit of a tailspin, because with this, I needed to be there, obviously, for my daughter, who took this at the time quite. I think she was very worried. It was a really scary time, but can I just say, he's brilliant now. And what I'll do is I'll get Matt to drop a little picture of him at the very end of this video after this piece of furniture, so you can see what a beautiful boy he is. I did stick a picture of him in the Made by Marley we do have a Made by Marley Facebook group as well. I'll get Martin to drop a link to that if you're ever using our decoupage paper and you want to. It's a group just to show off your projects with Made by Marley. And I did show a little picture of him in there. However, he had a whole load of tubes sticking out. I mean, he didn't look at his best, but I'll get a nice picture of him for the end of this video. So that's the first reason why I am doing this stamping. We had to look after Poppy, his big sister, and she's only young, and she had a lot of sleepovers, and she was kind of like, it was very important to us that she didn't feel too much that she hadn't seen her mummy. So there was that going on, but also what was happening here at HQ was we are this week. Is it this week, Martin? Tell me what week it was. No, next week. Next Friday is the launch of the summer release. Why is my release so late? It's just because I wanted it to be in the middle of summer. So it's, what can I say about this release of decoupage paper? It's a bit enchanted. It feels a little bit magical. It's got some Bohemian Brights. It's got some unexpected sort of pale summery papers in it. There are 8 papers in total. We'll be starting, I'm not even going to tell you what day it is today because this is just how far behind we are. I'll be starting on Monday of, you'll be watching this on Sunday, so it'll be the next tomorrow in your time. I will be starting to advertise that the new papers are out. I will be giving you some sneak peeks. You can't see to this side of the studio, but I have made many things with these papers. Some really things I'm really quite proud of that I can show you. I'll be posting those. We will get to see the Made by Marley decoupage paper in the flesh, because Martin and I will do a short video on Friday. Martin's keeping me right here. He knows. See, Martin's the business manager. I'm just the shonky that paints things occasionally. So that'll happen next Friday, and I really hope you like it. Martin's saying all the stockists will have, our papers are already should be in America today. And Julie, our distributor, will get in all the American papers. If you're everywhere else in the world, you know where your stockists are. And if you're unclear, Martin will put a thing at the end of this video where all the Made by Marley stockists are, and obviously at the end of the video that we filmed to show you the papers next Friday. And they'll be available on our website. And obviously they'll be available on our website. I need to ask you a question at this juncture, people who do crafts and creative projects. Christmas, it's a sweary word to some, but to me, I love Christmas, so I don't care. I'm just venturing there. Somebody posted some pictures. They weren't my papers, by the way. It shows you how nice I am. I was like, oh well, you know, what can you do? In our decoupage group, they posted some pictures of some Christmas decoupage paper. I thought about it, and I thought there are a lot of people who do an awful lot of things in the summer for Christmas. I'm not quite sure if where I'm going with this, but I guess the question I'm asking you is, do you think, or would you like a little Christmas collection early? That is my question to you. For those that have never watched any of my videos, by the way, before, and you've tuned in because you think, oh, this is a Stampin' 101, and you're thinking, who is this crazy woman who's just telling me loads of things? If you've never watched me before, we own our own decoupage company called Made by Marley Magic, and it's Bohemian bright decoupage paper. That's what I'm actually talking about. Oscar, my grandson, was just a side note. I mean, he was just a segue into the decoupage paper. We'll make sure that everything is all organised for next Friday. I would like you to kind of let me know whether Christmas is a horrible word and you don't even want to think about it, or you are somebody who crafts early, and is it worth having a little mini Christmas collection in the summer so that you can just pick from it from now until Christmas time. I'm not going to do any more big flowers at this point because I want to start showing you some leaves and how I'm going to work them out. I'm ill prepared with all these. I'm just ill prepared in general this week. And if I told you something, I'm just going to be really entirely, truly honest. Matt and I spent a lot of time filming our video for this week, and it got to the end, and I didn't like it. And no matter how I tried to look at it, I couldn't get behind it. I just thought, no, I do not like it. And I think it's one of those things where I want to sand a couple of parts back, and I will revisit it. But like all of you, I suffer from the same thing. I think I was quite agitated this week. I think there's quite a lot going on, and I think I had forgotten that being creative is fun. And I think I was trying to shoehorn an idea that I had into making it work. I'm just putting some leaves on now. I'm doing so much talking now, I'm actually forgetting to tell you what to do. So I woke up today with a whole new attitude. We don't have long to edit it. This may come with subtitles. It may not come. It may not come at all. I mean, it may come the same time as the release. Yeah, that's right. Actually, Matt says the more I talk, the longer it will take him because of the subtitles. Because we don't just use the automated ones. Martin actually does every single word I say, even in my Scottishness, and translates. So that anybody can watch our videos, and they're translated into, and Martin even takes the time to translate them into every language. So 38 different languages he translates it into. So I'm going to kind of stop talking because I've just realised how much you could just cut the part out about you could just cut the part about Oscar. Keep the decoupage paper part in. It's important, Martin. So I'm going randomly. What I'm doing now is, because I think that I'm kind of getting to, when I go to paint this in, all these little parts here, we will do a sort of general sort of green behind there so that it flows. I don't maybe want them to look too separate. So I said I was going to do something quite ostentatious with leaves. So let's start putting those in. But I think you've seen enough to know this is what I'm doing. I'm going to go away and I'm going to finish this front off. I do want a couple, which I'm going to stamp on the top here, and just a little bit on either of the side, just a nod to the front, not the whole thing, just a nod to the front. And I'll do all that, and then we'll come back and I'll set my palette up and we'll get to painting these. And I promise I'm going to stop doing as much talking, even though you needed to know these things. And can I just say, Oscar was what, £10? Six. So he was £10.6. He's lovely. He's such a good baby as well. He's a very good baby. He's all good now. We're all over our stress and anxiety about where all that was going at one point in time. I don't sleep at the best of times, but I don't think I slept for about 3 days. I think panic set in by about day 3 when nobody was actually coming up with anything that was actually what they could do next to try with him, but it's all good. And his little sister, who's been everybody's world for the last 3 years, we were a bit like, oh, how is she going to take all this? But no, she really likes him. So far, she's wanted to brush his hair, stick plasters to him because he's medically, she's the nurse. There's been quite a lot of things happen to his little life already. So it's all good. So I'm going to get on and do this and we'll get set up. Okay, so before we start, I'm just going to run through my palette. I have Provence with a little bit of grass in it. Can you see that? I don't know where that came from. Let's just move that to the side. Provence, Crepey Pink, Capri Pink, Antoinette. That's the 3 colours I'm using, and I kind of do a mix of a sort of purple, which is this, and a little bit of this at some stages. Now, I'm showing you up top because I've done a little bit as a sort of testy kind of how to get going at the bottom, and we'll get to that in a minute. So let's start up here, start afresh. Let's start with this leaf. Now, you want this to make it look like it's been hand painted. You don't want it to make it look like it's been stamped. So the first thing you're going to do is you're just going to play. This is why I decided to refilm a video, because I wasn't having enough fun with what I tried to do. And I think playing with paint and having fun is the way to get a good piece you're happy with. And I kind of forgot that yesterday when I was a bit kind of rushed and feeling stressed. Like rushed and stressed doesn't work. Now, I'm just going to leave this solid a minute, and I'm going to clean my brush, and I'm going to move on to the other piece because I want this wet, but I don't want it as wet as this, so that I can start brushing colours through it. So far so good. Just clean my brush off. It would have helped if I had my... Now, my flower is not 100% obvious to see. So what I kind of do with these things is I kind of start with the sort of darker colours and go, right, well, okay, I'm going to have these all sort of dark around here, and maybe some dark here, and some dark here in the centre. I'm going to have this bit dark here, and a bit dark here, some here. Now you can start mixing around. So I'm going to make myself a sort of, I want a little bit, an in-betweeny shade. So this sort of colour, it's got a little bit of green, so on my brush, and that's fine. And maybe do something. How you move your brush is how it will look. So be mindful of how your strokes go. It'll give your sort of hand-painted look sort of movement. Some parts you probably just have to make up. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to lighten it up again. I'm going to start sort of mixing some sort of lighter colours through here. This flower here goes right onto this edge. I'll get to that in a minute. The light could be hitting that here. Do you see what I'm doing? I'm moving my brush in a way that's giving the flower movement as well. It gives it a real kind of like a real hand painted look. This isn't the stamp and stamp again, paint and stamp look. This is how to make something look like you've gone to the bother of painting it. Now I was thinking about this because I'll show you when I go to the bottom part that I've already done. I have kind of just started to kind of hand paint some leaves in because, but why am I showing you this? If you're not quite sure how to start and how to do a peony flower, this is a good sort of base to get going. Now you have to be kind of careful in here because there's going to be some colour in there. I'm going to back down here with my dark again, and I'm going to mix this round. It's just a matter of blending it all in until you get a painterly effect that you are happy with. I want to mix some white now through it. You can go quite heavy like I'm doing here, and you can add your strokes. Smaller strokes make for smaller petals, bigger strokes make obviously for big long leaves. So something like this to start with. Now you're going to have to fiddle around with this for quite a while. I mean, I understand I'm kind of rushing, but what I want to do in the centre is I want to kind of just saturate this with some of this colour before I go back in with my green. Any sort of gaps, some I've left because, can you hear my stomach? I've just eaten something as well. I'm on a diet, so any food I get right now is a bonus.
That's not enough.
That's not enough. Right, so in here I'm going to dip into the, I'm not cleaning my brush either, and what I'm kind of doing is I'm sort of mingling into the thicker white, this sort of centre. But because I've got this on my brush, I'm just going to kind of mix up that sort of purpley colour that was, oh, that's kind of still quite green, and that's good because I have got some parts where I've kind of mixed in. Let's see if I can do a little bit more. I'm wanting a little bit more suggestion here and there. Right, I think you're getting this sort of general what I'm doing here. It's just like painting by numbers, but you're having fun doing it, and you can make it up as you go along. This leaf here, right, without cleaning my brush, I'm going to go back into the pink. I want this to be quite... Mary, I think it's your stomach.
It is.
I think it's yours. I don't think it's mine.
It's because she's got me on the same diet.
I've got him on the same diet. That's not true. You wanted to be on it yourself. They'll all be phoning the cruel line saying I'm doing something bad to you. And Martin's got lots of people that really like him, so I better not say anything negative. Now, again, you're just kind of working this. You can see what I'm doing. I'm dragging my brush back through it. Now I want to add a bit of this hot pink. So I'm going to come back down here in my leaf. And you can see how you can get very quickly, you can get quite a good sort of hand painted look. Now, I don't like the fact that this leaf is just kind of stuck. Stuck out there in the middle of nowhere. So I'm going to do something like, just do me another one in here and bring that in there so that it doesn't look as... I think I'm going to do just make me another one here as well. Yeah. And as you can see, I'm managing to keep some of the purpley tones through my painting. I'm finding it difficult to concentrate because Martin's stomach is making such a noise.
It's me.
It is you, I know. It's gurgling. Maybe it's because you just got food. Right, so that there. I've got another leaf here. And I'm just going to do this one. I could only get so much of this one on here. So this one here, I'm going to do a little bit more paler shades before I put my green on. It's just the same way. Any sort of untidy edges, like see these here, we'll fix all those when we go to put our base on our furniture. Something like that. It's about a painterly style and it's effortless. So let me just have a look around here. I want to put some sort of, and then I'm just going to fan that out. I've got a selection of different brushes here. I've got one sort of this size. I've got a liner brush. I've got two smaller ones if I feel like I want to use them. And I think pretty much I'm just going to pretty much leave that the way it is. I'm quite happy with that. I don't want to tinker with it too much. I'm going to... Martin, would I be able to just move this back and you be able to show the front? Or do you want me to do it in two sort of frames? Now, this is what I've done so far with the big one, and it's just exactly the same process as I'm showing you here. Oh, I can't do it without the paint. Hang on. I think it's useful at this juncture to say a mix mat is probably pretty good, or a piece of cardboard. So again, you know, you're just following your lines. Now, if you stamp this in white, you are going to get a better sort of line to follow. But as I said, I'm just kind of making this up as I go along. I'm letting the colour stay on my brush, and by not cleaning your brush, you get a really good mix of all this colour. Sorry, Martin and I are laughing. You can't hear his stomach, but it is really rumbling. And all I'm going to do is I'm going to do this with all my flowers. I'm going to paint them all in. You can see that I made that leaf up. That wasn't a stamp. I just painted that one in. But these ones here were all stamps. On this stamp, the leaf heads down that way, and I didn't like it. So you can see underneath where it was there is, you know, I just made it go that way because I didn't like how it's going to look. And this is why I'm saying this sort of painterly look is quite good, because it means that you can play and fiddle around with it as much as you like. I'm going to go on, I'm going to do these other 1, 2, 1 and the leaves. I've got 3 more to do here. I've done a little one on the top. I've only put 1 each on the sides. I'll paint those all in. Then we'll be getting to doing the background. And I think we're going to try and sort of, although the background is going to be black, we're going to put some sort of blending sort of around here, kind of like give it a little bit of a frame out. So we'll see how we go, but I'm going to get on. Oh, and this was what I was saying about leaving parts of the wood underneath. Can you see that there? What I've done? I've not given it 2 coats. I quite liked this here. When you stand back, gives it a really nice shade. So some parts here I've done really heavy, like this section. These parts here I've left it to give it a different colour, almost a sort of different shade of pink again. Some of it is completely painted in. It's entirely up to you. The other way of doing this is you could paint all your whole shape pink, and then you could come back in and put all your detail on, but you would lose a lot of your... It's to prevent all this stamping. It's supposed to look very painterly and freehand, and this is why I'm doing it this way. This is the difference between stamp, paint, stamp. It's not that. This is a sort of almost, look what I did, but you've had a good help to be able to do it. Okay, so what I'm doing now is I'm starting to put the black on the background. And this is where you can add a little bit of your own sort of details. You can make things look a little bit less crude by giving things. So for example, if I wanted to make this look like it had, I'm kind of going to go around it with my black line first. And then you can get a liner and you can do sort of details in your leaf like this. Give your leaf a bit more detail. The trick is with this is, and this is what made me do it the opposite way around, other than painting it and then stamping over it, is I get a chance to put other sort of details into it, and I feel sometimes it looks less stuck on there. Less that we've came along and stamped it on this flower. I'm just going to kind of do some parts in like this, just to kind of give my leaves a little bit more movement, like a sort of fluted area here. How I tackle this is I go around the edges first, and then what I do is, once I've gone around the edges and they're dry, or while they're drying, I tend to get a range of different brushes. So I've got a bigger brush here which I can go down here with, and I can get my bigger areas, because you're going to be wanting to give this 2 coats of colour. So you can go in exactly in where you painted it. I think it makes it look less, we have stamped this. I think when you stand back from this at the end, doing it this way, it looks less like we've stamped a piece of furniture and more like we've painted a piece of furniture. And this was the sort of how I set out today to try and show you, as opposed to, you've all seen me do the stamp and then restamp. You've also seen me kind of use bold, bright colours, which looks very uniform, whereas doing it this way, it does give it more of a painterly look, and that's what we're trying to do here. Remember, if you're doing along here, to make sure that you open your drawers. Now, I don't like the way that shape has gone now, so I'm just going to adjust this. And you can use your black now as a sort of little adjuster to put in little details that weren't there before. So say I want to go in here and around here. But this is all I'm doing now. I'm alternating between a big thick brush to do all the big areas, because you don't want to be here forever. You just, the longest time it should take is just painting in around here first. Second coat, when you go to do the second coat, you can just, you can whiz round it. And second coat as well, second pass around the edges, you can put in even more details. So I think you can tell what I'm doing here. I'm not, not over explaining it. I don't think. It's just, I want to make a bit more of a sort of cut in here, quite a big one. So I'm going to do something like this, and rounding that edge off. This is all I'm going to do now. I'm just going to go around. It's a bit of a labour of love, and do the background black. Then we're going to come on and we're going to do some other little details. I want to clear wax. No, I'm going to seal it. And when I get to sealing, I'll show you me sealing it. Then I'm going to come back on and I'm going to do dark wax over the black. But I am going to sand some of these parts away in the black. I always like dark wood sanded with black. I always think there's something quite classy about it. So I'm going to do that. So I'm going to do all my black now with my I've got 4 different black brushes right now. And I'm going to give it 2 good solid coats. Okay. Okay, so I've done all the black now. And what I'm doing here is I am lightly sanding round this joint. I'm not going to do where this middle part of the flower is, but anywhere where there isn't a pattern and it doesn't separate into 2, I'm going to do it. So I'm going to sand the edges, and this is just a different way of, this is quite a, what I would class as quite modern, this look that I'm doing today. It's not particularly vintage. It doesn't matter if you kind of rub over that like that, that's fine. When I go to seal it, that'll just, you know, it's always a little bit tricky working with black. It scrapes and scratches really easily, so, you know, don't worry too much about it. So I've done that. Now, what I've got, which I did have a minute ago, what I've got here is a Posca pen, and it is cream. Now, the shape I'm going to do, I want to try and keep them all the same. And how I do it is I go up, I'll loop, and then imagine the bottom of a love heart. So up, a loop, love heart, up, a loop, love heart, and just try and think of many sort of love hearts all in a wee row, trying to keep them all the same height. It's not the end of the world if you actually don't, but try and keep them all the same way. Try and get a bit of a rhythm going, practice on a bit of paper first. This is something I quite often do with little borders if I'm looking for something a little bit different and a little bit more modern. In this sort of gap here, I'll probably just do 1 and then make that look like that's going up. And then I'm not going to be able to fit a solid one in, so I'm going to go up, pretending I'm my loop and coming down, pretending I'm my loop and coming down till I can continue on again. And all I'm doing is I'm going around my drawers, but where obviously my split flowers are and the other half is in the drawer below it, I'm not going around there. I'm only doing the parts. How to work it out is just the parts that you've actually just sanded. The size that you've sanded is where your pattern goes. That'll keep you right. Whoop, I went a little bit off there. I'm not too worried that my pen's hitting up against there. It's giving an extra little bit of a dot. Yeah. Am I going to try and fit one in here? Maybe. Pretend it's going up there like that. And back round to this edge here. I'm going to kind of start here. And I'm going to show you what this looks like when I put this back in. And I'll show you the one I've already done. This is the next. If you don't always have to go to your armoury for stamps and everything. If you're doing a sort of modern look, you can make it up as you go along. I always think, I'm just going to show you what this looks like when I pop that back in. So that is the border. And if you look down to the bottom, I've done the one at the bottom. I'm going to carry on with the next 2. And then we're going to put a little bit of sort of, maybe with one of the other pens, do a sort of kind of flourish, make it even more modern than it is. You know, like a big, we'll get to that, but maybe even like it's as if it's shifted. I've forgotten the name of it. My brain isn't working today. So see my leaves here, like an extra outline, a shadow, let's call it. We could do something like that, or a bit of a flourish. We'll do something like that with some pens in a minute. I just want to get my sort of edges sort of sorted first. My handle choice for today is going to be these. So I think this is going to all make a really kind of cute, like modern piece, as opposed to a sort of vintage or a you know, it's still nice, bright, cheery. And even with the black, I think if you've got lots of interest, what have we learned today so far? We've learned how to do a sort of painterly effect with stamps that isn't the stamp, paint, stamp. We've done all that. We've did it a different way as well. We didn't base coat it first. We put our base coat on second, so it looks like it's more in it as opposed to on it. How to do little hand borders that are not too intricate, that when you step back look quite good. We're going to be doing a little bit more flourish, adding some interest. Suddenly it all starts to come together pretty easy without a huge amount of work. So although this seems to have taken me quite a while, Martin, today, I don't know, maybe my biorhythms are off. It's yeah, Martin trimmed a field while I've just done this. And I mean a field, I don't mean like a tiny little garden. So I'm gonna, he's got his wellies on and everything. He's just coming nipping back in and out. And show them your wellies. That's just right, enough of the wellies. I'll do this border, then we'll come back and do a little bit of flourish. Martin will maybe streamed another field, and then we'll be putting some more detail on it, and then we'll get to sealing, then we'll get to some wax. I think that's what's next. The next step is completely up to you. You can just leave it as is, but all I'm doing here is just imagining that I'm bringing that in the inside, bringing that on the outside, and just doing a sort of double sort of kind of, I'm not going to touch too much of the big one here. I'm just going to maybe do this. And all I did down on some other doors was just did a few dots with just a few little kind of smaller ones, just to give it something when you're close up. It looks good from a distance, but sometimes you need something a wee bit more interesting, just like that. Now, what I'm going to do next is, and you know what I had in my hand a minute ago, and I've now sat it over there, is I've got a Tupperware container that I'm going to put my French Chic Tough Coat Top Coat Sealer on it. Tough Top Coat Sealer on it. I'm going to seal it, let it dry, and then when it's dry, I'm going to come back and I'm just going to show you little bits that I'm going to wax. I've sanded down these edges just to reveal some of the wood. I've kind of roughly done it down the bottom. I'm not putting a lot of sanding into it. I think this is what is there. I'm toying with doing this little rim on this edge here, but I think I want to just keep this as this. So I think I'll do, what do you mean nah, Martin? You get on and cut your fields. Right. Okay, so I'm going to seal it, and then we'll put the handles on, we'll do some dark wax, and we'll be done. So it's finished. There isn't really much that you can do. There's not a lot of areas you can go wrong when it comes to stamping. You can do stamping on an already painted piece of furniture and doing what I did, or you can do what I did and do it this way, or you can do on a piece of furniture and do your paint it, stamp it, paint it, stamp it again look. You can use stamps for so many things, but getting that sort of hand painted look, just with a sort of your sort of rough outline of where your stamp's been, especially the IOD Peony stamp, but obviously there's the chrysanthemums and there's the sunflowers. I think that's the two that are very paintable, and they don't have all the shadowing, because obviously quite a lot of stamps have a lot of shadowing, and that's why it's best to do it, stamp it, paint it, stamp it. Whereas these ones, those ones in particular, really lend themselves to being painted. What else did we do today? Really, I mean, I was going to go back, and this is why it's just kind of finished here. I was going to go back and put brown wax in it, but I just thought it doesn't need it. It's a simple, clean, modern look that makes it look like you've taken the time to hand paint some beautiful peony flowers on it. Chip Martin changed up the handles, showed you how to do a quick border using acrylic paint pens. That's a good wee thing, borders. What I was going to talk about is just reminding myself is I was going to put dark wax on it for a sort of ebonized look. I sealed it, and then I was going to go back and do that, but I thought it might muddy up my waters of my paint and my flowers, and I didn't want to do that. But if you have struggle ever and you've painted your furniture black and you've given it 2 coats and it still doesn't look quite the way you'd like it to look, get your sealer and add a tiny little bit of your black paint into it, and then do your last coat of sealer with your black tint in it. It didn't work. I didn't do this today because obviously I've got all these flowers, but I have done that previously, and that's a way of getting mine's all my sort of scratchy muddiness ironed out as soon as I sealed it, but sometimes it doesn't, and that's a good little top tip to do that. That's really been it for today. Now, things next week are a little bit confusing. On Friday, we have the launch video. What time is that, Martin?
Midday, 12 o'clock GMT.
It's midday, noon at 12 o'clock, which is GMT. GMT, Martin? Yeah.
Greenwich Mean Time.
But instead of our usual Sunday video, next week we are taking part in a challenge. It's myself and Lavon from La Vintage Decor. We had actually put in the challenge on this time, so I will be entering, but it's not like I can't win. But there are some decoupage paper for the best furniture artist who, you know, Lavon and I think is really good. So it'd be worth having a wee keek. And the theme, I'm allowed to say this, yeah. The theme is maximalist because I picked it. Yeah, so I expect to see lots of pieces of furniture, maybe sort of furniture art that kind of you're used to seeing from me an awful lot. And by the way, somebody left me a really cheeky comment today and said, too much of everything about my work. So Martin and I have laughed all afternoon about that, because if you follow along, you know that there's always too much of everything. That's what I've built a career on. So maybe not for them. If you've enjoyed this video, give us a thumbs up, leave me a comment, like it, share it, and please don't forget to subscribe. And Martin and I will see you, next time it'll be Saturday, but normally it'll be every Sunday. Bye-bye.